This is SAFM.
And this is the Enviro Show. And first up, we're talking about solar farming. But first up, let me also say that if you'd like to join us, you would be most welcome. If you've got burning questions, especially if we're talking about solar farming, if you'd like to join us, you can do that. The number is 0892 10 2010. 0892 10 2010. Do feel free to join in. So, solar farming. Well, AEG Power Solutions South Africa has partnered with a local solar developer to build a very large grid-connected solar farms which aim to generate an alternative source of power in sub-Saharan Africa. Business Development Director is AEG Power Solutions. Trevor de Vries says that the company and Rito Solar, I think it is, have identified up to 20 large solar farms ranging between 5 megawatts and 20 megawatts in South Africa, Botswana and Namibia. So we've got the neighbours on board as well.
Yes, indeed.
Nice little sunny spots we've got there.
Yep.
So let's start off with a solar farm, Trevor. Thanks very much for coming in. Nice to have you here and live and in the flesh.
Pleasure, yep.
Solar farming, when I heard the expression solar farming, I thought, whoa, that sounds so big. We're moving right off people's panels on top of their rooftops and we're going big here. Just describe to us what a solar farm is.
Okay, so you're quite correct. We're going very, very big. And when we talk about solar farming, we're talking about ground mount photovoltaics or PV, usually a minimum of 1 megawatt, but for the purpose of South Africa, going up to 75 megawatts. So the government here has just launched a program called the IPP tender, or the Independent Power Producers tender, where they invite people to bid on a solar farm, to identify an area to build a solar farm, a ground mount solar farm, and then put the energy back onto the grid. So we're talking about a minimum of 3,500 hectares for a 1 megawatt power plant. This is a significant business. It consists of a lot of components, a lot of construction, build various components, and of course we are heavily involved in one of the key components, which is the inverters. And so then,
just hold it right there, because we'll get onto inverters and the definition thereof in just a minute. But 3,500 hectares for 1 megawatt farm.
Correct. Well, 3.5 hectares.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I was going to say, what?
No.
That's half the country. No, well, not really. 3.5 hectares.
Correct.
Okay.
Per megawatt, as a rough estimate, yeah.
Right. Because I'm just thinking, well, that changes up my whole framing of that question, because I was thinking, whoa, how much land are we looking at here? But then, having said that, you're identifying large solar farms all across the country, Botswana and Namibia.
Well, for the purpose of what we're doing here is we're focusing predominantly on the Southern African region. The bulk of those power plants will be built in the Northern Cape, where there is lots and lots of sunshine.
And lots and lots of open space.
Yes, indeed. And the good news there is you've got a lot of farming areas that are water restricted. And so the land is pretty much useless in certain areas. As long as you've got close proximity to the national grid and a substation, you are then able to build a very large PV plant and sell that energy back into Eskom, which benefits the country, because as you know, we have a huge problem with the lack of power in South Africa. And so renewables is there to stabilize the grid and indeed give us the power that we need for economic growth.
So all those cattle farmers who are needing desperate amounts of water, they can ditch the cattle and go for solar farming. Obviously not quite that easy, but we're not looking far off that really. We're looking at land, we're looking at the right sort of land. Location in this case is all, and hot and dry is what you want.
That's correct. And we certainly in those parts of the countries, they talk about a direct non-irradiation level, which essentially is the amount of sunshine per square meter. And there you're looking at rates that are 3 times higher than that in Germany, for example. And Germany is the solar capital of the world. So we are really sitting on a gold mine. So for instance, for the same size PV plant, we're getting 3 times the yield because of the Northern Cape is full of sun. And I mean, it's not only the Northern Cape. We have solar farms being built up the west coast of Cape Town, Crook up in the Northern Province, and so South Africa lends itself to photovoltaics.
So it's quite ironic that you should use a phrase like we're already sitting on a gold mine. I mean, we are sitting on gold mines. That's exactly what we do here in South Africa. But this is an alternative sort of gold mine that will hopefully make us stop digging up, what's in the ground. But is it a very costly business? I mean, we've established X amount of land is required. What about the panels themselves, the arrays themselves? Is it a very costly plant?
Yes, indeed. It's the only way that a large-scale PV plant can work is through a government subsidy. So it is absolutely necessary that policy is put in place to ensure the success of these PV plants. The solar panels make up the bulk of the cost simply because of the number of them. On a 75 megawatt plant, you're looking at 1 million solar panels. The cost is astronomical. So then you've got the cost of the cabling, the inverters, the design and build of the solar park, the security. So putting something like this together takes a lot of time. There's environmental impact assessment studies. There's a tremendous amount of effort. And what happened was, to give you an idea of the scope of this, in December last year, the government awarded the first 28 bidders for renewable plants in the country. That's not just solar, that extends to wind and biogas and the rest of them. They then gave them 6 months to close those deals in what we call financial closure. Through various reasons they were delayed, and 2 weeks ago they announced financial closure and signed the purchase power agreements with these companies. The value of those contracts is around 50 billion rand. So this gives you an idea of the cost involved in building renewables. 50
billion, yeah, but that's not. I mean, that's wind and biogas as well.
Correct.
I mean,
that's the total.
Where does in the pie? How big is the solar component?
The government's allocated around 8.5 gigawatts of solar for up to the year 2030, and the equivalent amount of wind. And then, of course, biogas and hydro and the rest of them form a smaller component of that. But certainly wind and solar take the lion's share.
Are we geared for this? Do we have the technical know-how? It certainly sounds from what you're saying like we do. But are we able to produce all the equipment locally, or are we having to import that? Because that could impact quite significantly, couldn't it? Nibble up some of that 50 billion.
Indeed, and a very good question. I mean, most of the inverters certainly are imported. We've set up a factory in Cape Town to build them locally. We are the first in South Africa to do so, specifically for the IPP tender. But yes, the rest of those inverters would be imported. Most of the solar panels are imported. However, there's 2 manufacturers in the country that are able to produce them here in Cape Town, in fact. But the bulk of the components would come from overseas, would be imported. So the idea of setting the factory up in Cape Town was to enable the developers of these PV plants to meet the minimum requirements of their tenders. The government is very, very clear that they want the money to stay in South Africa, and so the way they allocate these power purchase agreements is a 70% price. Obviously, it's a tariff that is bid down, and 30% then is economic development. And within the economic development scorecard, you've got things like management and social development and local content and black economic empowerment. And so it is absolutely crucial that you meet the minimum thresholds in that scorecard to enable you to bid. So we have put the factory in place, significant expense to assist developers in meeting those criteria. In round 1, it wasn't too much of an issue because it was undersubscribed in terms of the bid. Rounds 2 and 3, however, has been oversubscribed, and the threshold for local content has increased from 35% up to 45%. With the target going as high as 65%.
This is burgeoning business, isn't it? And we've only just begun. Well, we haven't really only just begun. Obviously, it's been going for some little while. 2 things. I don't want to forget the inverters. I want to find out exactly what an inverter is. And the other thing is, once all the equipment has been set up, it must be pretty low maintenance. It doesn't require watering. It doesn't require a whole lot of looking after. Well, maybe it does. But just explain an inverter. Just explain how that works, if it's possible to do it in simple terms.
so just going back, the maintenance on PV parks is pretty high.
Is it?
But it's because of all sorts of other reasons. But anyway, so inverter. The inverter is the heart of the system. So what that does is the PV panels will generate DC power from the sun. Okay, that DC power is then fed into an inverter and then inverted to AC power, which is usable energy that can be then fed back into the Eskom grid. It's metered, and then you are paid per kilowatt hour that you put back onto Eskom. Very lucrative business. The inverters are measured on efficiencies, certainly, is one of the key measurables. And uptime. In inverters down, you can literally measure your downtime in kilowatt hours. So it's crucial to keep them running, to maintain them. Of course, the PV panels are crucial. Without them, it wouldn't work.
Do they have a lifespan?
They do. The lifespan of a PV park is around 20 years. That's the minimum that you have to guarantee your equipment for. And that's typically what the financiers regard as bankable. So 20 years is the lifespan. However, to achieve that, you need a lot of maintenance.
Yeah.
It's a continuous process of maintaining not only the inverters, but the panels lose efficiencies. They need to be cleaned regularly. The grass has to be cut, so we employ a lot of sheep. and
hopefully a lot of people.
Yes, indeed. Well, I mean, that's the whole reason why we established the factory, is the government is very clear on job creation. And when you're looking at a PV plant specifically, most of the jobs are created at the build stage. So the first 3 or 4 months when you're building that power plant is when you'll employ most of the staff. It then tapers off extensively, and the operation and maintenance thereof requires a lot less people. So they're trying to encourage those skills to stay in the country by encouraging people like AEG, manufacturers, to develop factories to build these components.
How skilled are we? I mean, you mentioned that Germany are really leading the way on this one, but we've got the raw ingredient once again. Southern Africa is scoring here. Have we got enough people in the know? Because little by little, as you're talking, it's beginning to sound like quite an expensive business. Are we busy sending people overseas to get the know-how? You yourself were in IT before you moved into solar.
Yeah.
Good switch, if I may say
yes,
so.
Indeed.
Are there a lot of people newly discovering this?
Yeah, I mean, the skills are a problem, and a lot of our customers are international customers wishing to invest in the region. And so they're looking for skills from project management to engineering to manufacturing. Certainly setting up the factory was a challenge. We had to find those skills locally. We did. We sent them to Germany for extensive training. So they are now skilled in renewables, in production. But certainly the government is committed, and certainly the Western Cape, through the 110% Green Initiative, to encourage local skill development within the renewable space.
Say somebody were to wave a magic wand and all the farms that are anticipated were suddenly up and running all in one go. Would we be able to fuel ourselves? Would we be able to meet our energy demands by solar alone? What percentage, in other words, is this lot going to offer us?
Yeah, okay, so the government has targeted a total of 21 gigawatts of energy by 2030 coming from renewables. That is quite a significant figure, considering the total capacity, electrical capacity in the country at the moment is 43,000 megawatts. So yes, the importance here is that specifically PV, we can generate power at source. As you know, most of the electricity in this country comes from 12 fossil fuel power stations up in Mpumalanga area, and the energy is fed down to the rest of the country. By installing certainly solar and wind on the coast, you are able then to inject power in those areas where there is no power. And so yes, it provides a significant amount of energy into the grid, and it provides the stabilization that's required.
Just briefly, and I'm not quite sure about this one, but I'm going to ask you, I have heard just recently I heard somebody phoned in, we were talking about solar power or alternative energies generally, and they were sort of suggesting that it might not be as cost effective and it may not be the answer. The downside, I mean, be honest, the downside to solar farming is what?
Well, certainly the upfront cost, and the process of applying and signing for a purchase power agreement is extensive. To get your purchase power agreement, you are looking at a 2 to 3 year process upfront of permitting, of land acquisition, of environmental impact assessment studies. The actual bid that goes in, I believe, is between 6,000 and 8,000 pages. So it is very, very onerous. And the cost, obviously, is a tremendous factor.
So this is not for small scale farmers.
No. This is large scale, and it's a significant event for South Africa. And certainly, without a tariff, it would not exist. But what's happening is, as the cost of Eskom electricity goes up 15% year on year, or in fact, I think they announced it 16% annually. We're looking at 2015 as a levelized cost of electricity, which means, in layman's terms, that the cost of solar will be the equivalent to the cost of Eskom. So that's really when solar comes into its own, because people would start investing in solar for their own use. They do not have to then go to the government for a tariff or for a contract. They can simply install it and use the energy for themselves.
This is really the language of the future, isn't it? We're all going to have to start getting used to this now. You've got a website here, which is www.aegps.com. Will people find out more info on that?
Yes, indeed. I mean, most of the information is there. They can certainly contact us at the factory if they're looking for more information. That's on the website as well, under South Africa. And, we conduct factory tours, and we can certainly show them around.
Excellent. Well, I've no doubt we'll be hearing a whole lot more about solar farming. Trevor, thank you so much for joining us. Absolutely fascinating. My eyes are sort of starting to boggle just with all those statistics. Trevor de Vries, he's MD of AEG Power Solutions, Southern Africa. And if you would like to find out more, do check it out, www.aegps.com. And we'll put that up on our Facebook page. That's the Enviro Show on SAFM. Right, AEGPS, something to remember if you're into solar energy. Well, next, moving on very smartly to where the sun fairly consistently shines, to Swaziland, where they've been keeping the secret of the marula tree at a company called Swazi Secrets, and what they're doing there is producing skincare products. Well, earlier I found out a little bit more. I spoke to Services Manager Sindile Mamba.
So around February each year, the marula fruit, they are eagerly gathered by Swazi rural women as an important source of income. First, they will use it to make the bukanu, which is known as a traditional Swazi brew, of which they sell to the local communities as their source of income. After they have brewed the traditional brew, they leave the nut to dry in the sun before cracking them in the traditional way to extract the precious kernels. So us as a community, we go around to the different communities to buy the kernels from the different women. We've got about 3,000 women, between 2.5 and 3,000 women who are our suppliers, and because they are owners of the company. We go around buying those kernels, of which we buy at 27 rand per kilo from each supplier. What we do with those kernels, we take them to the factory in bigger quantities and just cold press them to marula oil, of which from the marula oil we've got about 6 to 7 different products that we make from the marula oil. So this project is a project that started early 2005, of which the Queen Mother of Swaziland is a patron of. She came with the dream in that year to help the Swazi rural women to generate income for themselves, because down in the low field of Swaziland, it's known for its poverty, and most of these areas are affected by HIV and AIDS. So us buying from them, it really helps them to send their children to school and to sustains them from cost of living. They get like money for food and for other needs at home. So from the marula oils, we are able to export to other countries, but our main market is Aldivia, a company called Aldivia in France, and then we also export to Europe, of which our main customer is in Germany. The oil, it's a very rich oil. It's rich. It's got its natural antioxidants, which is rich in vitamin E and iolic acid. So it's a very good oil for the skin. We don't deal with the consumption part of it, but we only specialize on the cosmetic part, of which it's a very interesting oil because it's also a vegetable oil, but we specialize mostly on the cosmetic part.
It sounds like an extremely sustainable project in as much as it's helping 3,000 women. Each and every one of those women, they're able to collect the fruits only at a certain time of year. When do the fruits fall?
The fruits, they start falling in February, between February and March, while it's still green, and then some of them, they ripe while they're still up there on the tree. They fall down into the ground naturally, and then they start gathering them. Because it grows mostly in the forest, some trees, some of the homesteads in the rural areas, they've got their trees in their farms, some of them next to, like in their homesteads. And just around, they're just spread all over the low field. So it depends where you have the tree, and then you start gathering and sell to us.
Yeah, and I think the trees are very prolific. I think that each and every mature tree produces something like 500 kilograms of fruit every year.
Yes, that's a lot. But what happens is it depends because it's not the same every year. Like it's also being affected by the weather. So if we've had like too much rain, we don't really produce enough fruit, of which it also affects our suppliers because then they can't supply enough to us. But if we've had a nice, clean, dry, cool weather, then they can harvest enough.
They're victims of climate change like so many things. The trees themselves, are they protected in any way? I mean, is it possible to cut them down? Is there a danger that they may be cut down?
The trees, we do protect them because we've, like for instance, we've had so much like construction going on in the rural developments. We find that they are building dams at some communities. But what we have done, we have got a group, like as I deal with the member services, what I do is I have formed different groups within the communities, women who protect the trees, and we have actually implemented a tree planting program, of which I ask those women to at least plant one tree per person to have more trees to supply in future. So those that are present, what we do is we ask them to build sort of protection or a hedge, or some of them they use fencing around their trees so that it can be protected. The other thing that is a danger is pesticides. So what we do is we ask them not to use, like if you have a tree in your farm, most of the farms, they plant like maize plants. So we find that we ask them not to use pesticides. Everything must just grow naturally, because in the long run, if that tree is contaminated, then it will affect the harvest. So what we do is we ask them not to use pesticides because we want a fruit that is as natural as possible.
In fact, organic, is it?
Organic, yes.
Is it organic?
Yes, what we did previously, we were organically certified by EcoCert, but then because of certain problems that we had in the long run, and because we never used to get honest people, so we stopped like doing the organic certification. But yes, our product is organic, as you say it, because before we buy the kernels from the women, we do an inspection in their different communities from the time when they harvest to the time when they supply us, because we also have to inspect their houses where they dry the nut, and inspect the utensils that they use to crack the nut, and where they keep those kernels before they take them to the factory or before you go out and buy those kernels.
Just taking the kernels that have now been dried, you take them to the factory, you crack them open, and there is the marula oil.
So what you do is, if you can imagine the fruit as it is, it's got a hard shell inside. That is the nut. And then our suppliers, they are the ones who do the cracking. So we buy those kernels, so take to the factory, press it, nothing added, nothing taken away. It's just, we just warm it first to get enough yield and then just produce the marula oil.
And what do you make? What are the products that you make out of the oil?
We have a marula shea and butter lotion. That is marula oil mixed with ziminya oil and mongongo oil from Zambia. Besides the marula oil, we've got about 2 different other natural seeds that we make. We have got a ziminya, which is known as a wild sour plum. It also grows naturally in the forest. So our women, because we don't really have enough ziminya fruits, we have got a very little harvest. So what we do is they collect the seeds as well. We just take it to the factory, cold press it, and then we produce the ziminya oil. We also have another one called trichilia, which is known as a Natal mahogany. Some of the people, they know it as a lucky bean. It's sort of orangish. Orange in color. It's found also in the low field, mostly in the dry areas.
Yeah, well, you're certainly using all the products that are around you, all of which are indigenous. But just lastly, Sindile, are they protected in as much as all the women who are collecting all these things are sufficient of the fruits being left so that they can grow again naturally in the wild?
Okay, in that case, they don't really figure with the tree, with the fruits. So because marula is just a natural, it grows natural and then it falls down natural. So whatsoever is left, it will eventually fall down. It will then grow again within in the next following year. We also have a byproduct called facial scrub, which is when we press the oil, it goes through a certain sieve before it goes down to the jar, which collects the marula oil. The residue that's left on the sieve, we use it as a natural facial scrub. The interesting part also about this project is that it's a zero-waste project because the cake, the dry part that is left from when they pressed, we just use it for animal feed. So it's just a nice snack for our local farmers, animals that they have in their homesteads.
Well, doesn't that sound like a win-win situation all round? That was Sindile Mamba. She's from Swazi Secrets. And if you'd like to find out a little bit more about their facial scrubs and all their other products made from marula, check the site. It's www.swazisecrets.com. swazisecrets.com.
This is SAFM.
Yay! Well, next up here on the Enviro Show, one of the ways of getting really good environmental ideas out of people is to run a competition. Well, tonight we get ourselves a couple of finalists in the Shift Inspiring Sustainable Design Awards. If we have time, and I think we probably will, we'll be talking to Ryan Allen. He's an artist and a permaculture designer, and he's going to be talking to us about his Re-H2O water recycling plan. What a good idea. But first of all, we do have in the studio Nadia Smith, and she's a third-year graphic design student. I underline graphic design student. What's she doing with environmental things? Who knows? But she's with CPUT, that's the Cape Peninsula University of Technology. Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
And she's come up with something called Femaway, and it's a biodegradable solution to female hygiene products. And don't switch off your radio because it's really important that you know what this is all about. Hi, Nadia.
Hi.
I mean, I'm making the point there about a graphic design, and I'm thinking, what's a graphic design student doing environmental designs with?
Well, graphic design students, as a graphic design student, we all need to become sustainably responsible. So we need to start designing more sustainable to uphold our world, pretty much. So
you have to expand beyond just to visuals and think about where you're going with this.
Instead of just designing something just for design's sake, we need to start taking responsibility and go to the origins and actually start saying, okay, this needs to be sustainable.
So it's been quite a mind-expanding thing. As far as I understand it, there are 16 groups who've reached the finals, and I think the winners are going to be announced in February next year. And CPUT, it's so difficult to say that, CPUT, some people call it kaput. Yeah, sorry about that. But I think you've done very well. I think there have been quite a number of you who've gone forward. What sort of brief were you given?
We were given a brief that we had to come up with a sustainable design. We had pretty much free reign. We could choose our own topic. So each of us had to come up with a sustainable design that could be used within Cape Town or within South Africa. Yeah.
They gave you no idea as to what the product would be. It just needed
Free
to be
reign.
sustainable. Wow. So where did you start?
Well, I've always had in my back of my mind what to do for this type of project. And for me, this project, well, the FemAway product, for instance, was always something that affects every woman and affected me pretty much as well. Because I know I go through so much toilet paper through the month just because I have to try and dispose of it. So I thought, well, isn't there a more sustainable, more hygienic way of getting rid of these things? So I came up with a FemAway bag.
Okay. So what we're talking about here is sort of female hygiene products. Is it always difficult to talk about? What we're talking about, tampons,
Tampons, pads,
sanitary
panty
pads,
liners.
all those things that
Yeah.
take an unbelievably long time to biodegrade in landfills, as we keep being reminded again and again and again. So given that they exist, your plan is to make them more quickly biodegradable. How?
Well, it's a double-layered Ziploc bag. Okay, the outer layer is a pattern bag, so it hides what's inside when you've put the used product inside. The second layer helps the product to biodegrade a little bit faster or degrade faster than it normally would. So when you put it, you can also use it as a fertilizer eventually, because it is just natural product that's going into it and eventually will degrade.
Okay, so the secret ingredient is the agent or whatever it is, or whatever material it is, that you put into the second layer that accelerates biodegrading.
That's correct.
What is that?
I'm not actually quite sure yet. I've still got to actually go and do the study and everything for it. So I've got to still do more research into it to actually see if the whole product will be feasible. But
so what you're looking at here is the principle.
yes,
of
it's
it.
the principle of it.
Yeah. I must tell you that I'm not sure if there's any connection here whatsoever, but some little while ago on the program we talked about bokashi. Don't know if you've come across it. It's a Japanese product, and you use it to help biodegrade kitchen waste. And you have a layer of kitchen waste, and you put in a layer of bokashi and kitchen waste, and eventually it just sort of does the job. But I suppose this is something that you're going to have to do the research on. Have you started that research? I mean, have you come across anything?
I have done some research. Have found out there are like similar type of methods, but they haven't actually personalized it for the woman. They haven't actually taken the actual woman into account. That's why I was thinking of a nice pattern on the outside. Makes it a little bit more feminine. If you have it in your handbag, you accidentally take it out. It won't be embarrassing because people don't know what it is, because it's a nice pattern bag. Also, it's Ziploc, so there's no odors coming out, no germs. It's completely hygienic.
Yeah, and it's a real issue because a lot of people in this country don't have toilets, never mind anywhere to dispose of those sort of things.
A lot of homes don't even have, when you go to a mall or something, they have those bins on the side, and a lot of people don't really want to touch those because it's very unhygienic. So instead of having to touch the bins, you put it in your bag, dispose of it later. Especially when you're at home, you just put it in your toilet bin, but now it will keep all the germs in, the odors,
When you started doing your research, did you talk to people? Did you, aside from your own experience, what sort of...
I spoke to other women. I spoke to, obviously, family and friends. Also spoke to other women, like, on the street and everything, finding out what their situations are. And,
You know, the next step, I suppose, would be just sort of thinking ahead or thinking backwards in terms of the sort of life cycle of a human being. Disposable nappies, could something similar be done there?
I
Because
think
those are
eventually
another big
it will,
environmental culprit.
Yeah, well, it's pretty much the same thing as a sanitary pad. So the first thing is I want to first create the smaller bag for the handbags. Eventually, maybe a bigger bag for the mothers out there who want to dispose on the go. And they can just put it in their bag and nobody will know.
Well, this could make you terribly rich and famous, or you may sort of disappear into insignificance depending on how all the other people do. So it'll be really interesting. I think, as I said, the winners are going to be announced in February.
In February
year.
or March sometime, yeah.
So are you waiting with bated breath to hear if you get
I would love to go because I know that they pick the 3 finalists, and I think the 3 finalists actually go on a learning exchange to Sweden. And it's a great experience to be able to go and learn how they are doing sustainable things up in that side of the world, and maybe even bring it back down to South Africa one day.
Yes. Oh, wow. Well, I hope you make it. I think it certainly sounds very exciting. And very best of luck. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much,
I know that
Nancy.
you haven't got a website for the FEMA Way, but if anybody would like to know more, probably best to have a look at the Shift Sustainable, Inspiring Sustainable Design Awards. Let me give out that website. Nadia Smith, thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
luck.
Nancy.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Nadia Smith. Well, if you would like to know a little bit more about her FEMA Way and all the other finalists who've made it, check the site. It's www.theshift.org.za. theshift.org.za. Well, also another finalist in the Shift Sustainable Design Awards is Ryan Allen, and he's both an artist and a permaculture designer, and he's come up with something called the Re-H2O. I think that's how you say it. We've got him on the line. Hi, Ryan.
Hi there.
Have I said it right? Is it Re-H2O? How do you
That's
say
right.
it? Okay. Just explain what this is. Now, it's a way of reusing water.
Yeah, well, the RHTO system it's a grey water recycling system, a biological filtration system for grey water. So anything except your black water, which is your toilet water, can go through the system. So your shower water, bath water, kitchen sink, washing machine, all that can go through and get filtered by a series of reed beds. These are plants that then change the water, start to absorb a lot of the chemicals and the nutrient in the water, and reoxygenate that water, making it more appropriate for use in the garden.
Okay, reed beds, right. I'm trying to get a picture of it here because there's a lot of, I can't remember, sort of grey water systems that you can have installed into your house, which makes it all terribly sort of easy, and pipes going all over the place, moving from bath water into your garden. But this is now going through a reed bed.
Yeah.
So you've got to have...
The difference between what a lot of the systems that I've seen now and what I've done is that a lot of the other systems are just a basic filtration to get out the solids in the water, and then going into a storage tank that then you pump out the water to. It doesn't actually go through this, what you could call phytoremediation process, which is your plants then absorbing the nutrients and clearing out any of the pollutants in the water.
Okay, so that phytoremediation. It sounds like it's doing the same sort of job as a wetland.
Yes, it is essentially a constructed wetland.
Okay. So the reed beds, then you've got to have sufficient amount of space near your house to have the reed bed growing. Is it a particular type of reed?
Yeah, there's a variety that are used, mostly your Typha and Phragmites species, but you try and keep it as diverse.
Sorry, just say that again. Or what Phragmites?
A Typha, is one type of species, and another is Phragmites.
Okay.
Those are your two main ones that you use. But obviously everything in nature happens with a lot of diversity. So I try to include as many different types of plants as I can.
Are they indigenous?
The Phragmites tends to be a bit of a problem, but the Typha, I've noticed growing in a lot of our wetlands.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how does it work? So you've got your reed bed. I mean, how many square meters, or how much of I suppose it depends how much water you're looking to sort of shift or filter.
Yeah.
Just explain how it works.
Okay, well, the system is probably just over 1 square meter of space that it takes up.
Okay.
So relatively compact. And what happens is the water first flows into a surge tank, which just deals with the initial flow of water coming in, which tends to be faster than the actual flow of water through the rest of the system. So it just captures that initial surge of water. And then once that gets to a certain level, it overflows into each of the reed beds in series. So it goes into the first one, and once that fills up, it then moves through the others. And each of the different groups of reeds start to perform different functions. Some will absorb most of the nitrogen, some will absorb more of the phosphorus. They're all reoxygenating the water, because that's one of your main issues with grey water, is that usually after a period of 24 hours, all the oxygen in the water is depleted and it starts to smell. So the reeds help to just put that oxygen back into the water.
So how many places does the water go through then? We've got the sewage tank that spills over into the reed bed, and then?
There's about 3 reed beds that it goes through.
Okay.
So, and it depends on how heavy your water requirement, or how much water needs to move through the system. Because it needs to spend enough time interacting with the reeds and the bacteria in the reed beds to get to change its composition.
Let's just take an example. So you've got a washing machine, and I'm not sure how many litres of water. I should know this. How many litres of water a washing machine cycle takes? But say, for instance, it's 40 litres. It could be more. It could be less. So that comes out. It goes into the sewage tank. It spills out into reed bed 1.
Yeah.
And what happens there?
So it's usually each reed bed holds just short of 100 litres of water, probably close to 80 litres of water.
Okay.
So once it gets to that level, it'll just overflow into the next one, which holds the same quantity.
So
it can deal with a number of washes at a time.
Okay. And when it comes out, when it's gone through as many reed beds as it needs to, when it comes out, how clean and pure is it? I mean, is it drinkable?
I wouldn't advise drinking it because I still have to do the actual water testing to see what the quality is like. But it's a lot safer to use with vegetable plants. Usually there's an issue with using grey water direct on vegetable plants.
Yes.
The rule of thumb is the further away the plant is from the ground, or your fruit, which you harvest, away from the ground, the safer it is to apply grey water to it. So a lot of people prefer to avoid using grey water on their vegetables because they absorb the pollutant from the water as well.
Yeah.
So it's better that it goes through this process of cleaning first, allowing the water to become a bit more suitable.
Okay, so it sounds like it would be a very workable, viable situation for people who've got vegetable gardens, sort of substantial vegetable gardens, or even fruit trees, or even a small farm.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the reason that I've built a little experimental system at home. And in the Eastern Cape, we had a serious drought for a number of years. So I was trying to get as much sort of use out of the water that I was using already, because I'm growing a lot of my own food at home.
Yeah.
So my water then goes out straight to my fruit trees, and you can apply it to any kind of scale. At the moment, it just goes to one grouping of fruit trees, and that's it. But it can flow to a reasonable size vegetable bed, or you can set up a piping system and you can direct it to different fruit trees on different days.
Yeah, the beauty of it is that there are absolutely no chemicals involved, aside from what the chemicals that there are in your washing machine.
It's a really natural process of filtration and cleaning the water, and very low maintenance. There's just an area where you need to clean out. There's a grease trap that's fitted to the surge tank, and that just needs occasional cleaning of the solids that have collected in the water. But apart from that, very easy to manage, and you just get to enjoy the harvest.
Yeah. You make it sound very simple. I don't quite have a picture of what it looks like, but once again, I would imagine that we'd find it on the Shift website, will we?
I don't think there's a picture on there at the moment. I think it's just the written up concept.
Well, Ryan, as a permaculture designer, I imagine you've got a website yourself?
I don't have a personal website, but I do have for our Transition Network group, which is a movement that's been initiated around the world, really, and it's looking at building local resilience into our communities. So the website for that is nmbtransitionnetwork.wordpress.com. And that just looks at some of the stuff we've been doing.
Sorry, is that NMB?
NMB Transition Network.
Yeah.
.wordpress.com.
Okay. Whoa. That sounds like
a bit of a mouthful.
Yes, no, that's all right. I've got it. But it sounds like a whole new subject that we'll have to touch on another day. Wow. Ryan, very best of luck. It sounds very exciting. A little bit Heath Robinson, but lots of fun. Thank you very much, and very best of luck for the awards. Thank you
very much, and thanks for speaking to me.
Take care. Ryan Allen, he's an artist and a permaculture designer with a very fertile brain, and his H2O, if you'd like to find out a little bit more, check his, it's WordPress page really, NMB Transition Network, nmbtransitionnetwork.wordpress.com.
This is SAFM.
And this is the Enviro Show. And we're talking to such unbelievably clever people this evening who are designing all sorts of weird and wonderful things. And I'm just still trying to get my head around the reed bed there that's going to filter out your water. Well, as I did promise, it's a kind of a domestic little program that we've got today. We've got Femaway products. We've got how to work with the water that's come out of your washing machine. And what better way to sort of move on from there into the dryer? And as we all know, all us environmentalists know that a tumble dryer is probably the greediest thing you could possibly come across in terms of your laundry. So if you've got one, turn it off right now and listen very carefully, because we're going to hear all about the Spindle. We've got Paul DiMeo with me. He's director of Spindle. Hi, Paul.
Hi, thanks for having me on the show.
Hi, excellent. So this Spindle dryer, it's not a tumble dryer,
No.
It's a spin dryer.
Correct.
Explain.
Okay, so basically the Spindle is an energy-efficient laundry drying appliance, and we've just launched it into the South African market. It's been in the market for about 6 months. And so as you know, up until now, you only really had two options when it comes to laundry drying. Either you air dry, and that can take, it's fine if it's, nice weather, but if it's raining, you're sitting with a whole lot of wet washing in your living room, in your spare bedroom, etc. And if it's cold and if it's humid, it can take hours or days to dry at a time, and you get the horrible damp smell in your fabrics, and it's very inconvenient. The alternative, of course, is the tumble dryer, and as you mentioned, that's one of the worst household appliances when it comes to electricity consumption. Obviously running costs are huge and very bad for the environment. The other thing is that the heat damages your clothes, because essentially you're baking your clothes dry, and so that just fades the colors and damages the fabrics over time. And you can't put certain fabrics in the tumble dryer. So even though it is convenient, it has a lot of drawbacks. So this is where the Spindle comes in. It offers a new alternative. Essentially allows you to save your time, save money, and also preserve your fabrics and do reduce your impact on the environment.
Sold. How does it work?
Okay. Basically, if you can describe it to you, it's nice and compact. It's about 55 centimeters high and 35 centimeters wide. It's like a laundry bin, if I can describe it, with a stainless steel end drum in it. So what you do is you take your laundry from the washing machine, or from hand washing straight if you want. You load it into the Spindle. You close the lid. You turn it on, and it speeds up. Instead of using heat to evaporate the water from the fabrics, it uses centrifugal force, or spin speed. So it speeds up to 2,800 revolutions per minute, which is much faster than any washing machine out there. To give you an idea, a top loader goes at about 600 to 800 revolutions per minute. A front loader might go up to 1,400 if it's a very fancy one. So the Spindle's going double the speed of even your top-of-the-range washing machines, and 3 or 4 times faster.
So it's like your spin cycle on speed?
Except, exactly, much faster. So to give you an idea, if you're putting a full load of washing through the Spindle, you can get an extra half litre to a litre or 2 litres of water extra out after your washing machine's done with it, depending obviously on the type of washing machine you're using.
So this little bin that's 55 by 35,
correct, yeah.
Where does the water go? Has it got
so it's got a spout in the front. So the nice thing is it's not only compact, but you don't have to install it. You can put it anywhere in your garage or your laundry or kitchen, and then you just put any receptacle underneath the spout, like a tub or a jug or something, and the water, all the water that's removed, comes out the spout and goes into the receptacle. You can then reuse the water or throw it out, whatever you want to do.
Or run it through a reed bed.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can store away the Spindle afterwards, or even take it camping. Some people said they want to take it camping because it's compact enough, but it still takes 4.5 kgs of laundry because you fill the drums. So 4.5
kgs in that little thing.
Yep, and it takes 3 minutes. The cycle time is 3 minutes.
Ooh,
so
exciting. We're going to get onto the statistics just now. I want to know exactly how much energy it uses
sure.
relative to a tumble dryer. We're talking to Paul DiMeo. He is the director of Spindle, so stay with us. Well, here on the Enviro Show, we're deep into drying clothes. Why not? Paul DiMeo, in fact, his name is. He's a director of Spindle and just busy explaining to us how the Spindle works. So just give us the statistics then. If you plug it in, your little Spindle, and how much energy does it use and how long does it take?
Okay, well, let me start with the 3 benefits. We'll explain all that. I'll give you an overview of that. So basically what it does, it uses the centrifugal force to extract 80% of the leftover moisture in your clothes in just 3 minutes. So 3 minutes and you're done, okay? But when it comes out, when you turn it off after 3 minutes, you take out the laundry. It's not 100% dry. It's still a little bit of moisture left in the fabrics, but it means you can air dry in a fraction of the time. So even in the heart of winter in Cape Town, when it's raining outside, I can dry a towel overnight. where it normally takes 3 days to dry. And some of the thinner fabrics in summer you can dry like a towel in 45 minutes or an hour.
If you keep putting it in, will it
no,
keep dry
after
dry?
3 or 4 minutes you're not going to get much more water out.
Yeah.
Some of the thinner fabrics and synthetics you can basically take out of there and iron immediately, so it's iron dry. So you can take out iron, pack away. Your thicker fabrics you can take in warm days like an hour, and even in winter overnight. Okay,
so how much energy does it use relative to a tumble dryer?
Okay, so the time saving is the first benefit. The second big benefit, obviously, from an environmental perspective, is energy saving. A tumble dryer can use up to 3,000 watts per cycle, as you mentioned, one of the worst appliances. The spindle uses 15 watts per cycle. Okay, so I mean, to give you an idea, it's the equivalent of using a 60-watt light bulb for 15 minutes. That's how, so it's using virtually no or very little electricity, and the running cost is very low, and obviously you're reducing the impact on the environment. And you can use it as a standalone appliance in an air dryer, or you can use it with a tumble dryer. So what the guest houses are doing is they obviously have a huge amount of the electricity cost for their drying is one of their big cost centers. So what they're doing is they put in the spindle first, and in 3 minutes it takes out most of the water, hardly using any electricity.
I was going to ask you about the whole hospitality industry, because as you say, they pump out this stuff. Even this little 4 kilograms thing, are you not going to make a bigger one?
In future we could look at it, but I mean, I've got quite a few guest houses already using it, and when you start using it and you see it takes 3 minutes, they could put it in for even 2 minutes, and 4.5 kg load. To give you an idea, what I'll put in there is 2 towels, a queen size sheet, a top, and a pillowcase. That's what I normally demo with. So it takes quite a nice load, and it's just a couple of minutes.
Is it a proudly South African product?
Well, it's imported, so the branding is all local, and it's launching into the market under the Spindle brand, which is proudly South African, but the product is at the moment imported. But as I was saying,
at the moment,
yeah.
Does that mean that we could be making them here?
I would love to. Yeah, it obviously depends on volumes, and the bigger the market gets, then that becomes more feasible. As I was saying, just with the guest houses, so what they do is they put it in the spindle first, and then they pop it in the tumble dryer afterwards, but then it reduces the cycle from an hour and a half to 20 minutes. So they can use it with a tumble dryer to save an hour electricity as well.
So it all depends on your individual application. Wow.
Exactly, yeah.
Paul De Maio, thank you very much. Goodness me, I feel as I've been through one myself.
Thank you.
But if anybody would like to know more, www.spindle, that's spindel.co.za, spindle.co.za.
Correct, yeah.
Lovely.co.za.
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 Correct.